Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. Electrifying.
Yes, guys, and welcome back to the unbreakable, the unmistakable, and the always latable TCP Live, coming at you live at 8 p.m. every Thursday evening on YouTube and available ad-free on YouTube memberships and Patreon. I'm on my hotspot today, ladies and gents, because Virgin Media.
What? Sorry, what did you say?
I'm not going to use the word. I'm not going to use the word I said off stream, Rohan. Don't try and get me, you naughty boy. I see you. Hi, everyone. Hi, Rohan.
Hiya. How are you? Oh, God.
It's very warm, we'll say. This is not sponsored. Imagine. Fiji water, the best.
I've never had it. Never.
Fiji water. How much do you think for that much amount of water?
Well, you live in London, so there's London tax.
Yeah.
So I reckon 120.
$2.99.
Oh my God.
But it's so good. It's so good.
See, I'm an Evian boy.
Yeah?
Yeah. Back in the day, right? I was like Volvic through and through. But then I just got off it. I don't know what it was. I just got off it. And then I went through a phase of tap water. I thought tap water's going nicely. But then I thought,
depends where you are.
Yeah, and that's true. It's good in my area. And then went on Evian. But then I mixed up actually. I went on Saka as well. On the Saka.
Oh, on the Saka.
Yeah.
Well, that is on brand.
Yeah. And
it is on brand. Highland Spring. I will say Highland Spring is goated. If I had to go like Buxton, Evian, I'd go Highland Spring, mate.
But isn't that more like sparkling water vibes?
No. Highland Spring is
because that's what they're associated with, really, aren't they? When you think of Highland Spring, it's sparkling water.
Yeah. How many people do you think care about this conversation? Out of 10?
Everyone.
Everyone. Welcome back to TCP Live. Hello, everyone. How are you? We hope you're doing fantastically well. Already 46 comments about water bottles and things like this. Ninda says, "Oh, it's late." Josh Miller says 8 p.m. half day today, guys. Yeah, sorry, Josh. We are we're having we both just we're busy boys. I was at my friend's art show. It was very good.
Yeah. The
Very,
only
very good.
art show, the only art museum I've been to in this country was the Tate Museum in Liverpool. That was good back in the day.
Tate Modern's pretty good.
Yeah.
Agnes Martin. I saw an exhibition of her. Good stuff.
I went to a Picasso one in Barcelona as well. That was good. Yeah, that was good. Yeah.
You love Barcelona. You talk about it all the time. You love it.
That right. So for me, in terms of Europe, that's my favorite place. My favorite holiday destination. It's got everything you want, like everything. Name me something. It's got it. Beach got it.
Lionel Messi.
Had it.
Many years. We're here to talk many things, football mainly. We're going to talk Madueke. We're going to talk Leandro Trossard, who supposedly has agreed personal terms with Fenerbahce. We're going to talk Gabriel Hines Beans, as Rohan calls him. We're going to talk Eze, and I do want to have this conversation about Jesus. I feel like we're underrating Jesus.
You're really loving this Jesus angle. It's been a few.
I've just had it on my list to talk about for a long time. We never get to it because stuff is mad at the minute. We've had
that for Heinz Beans as well, haven't we?
Yeah. There's always stuff we don't get to. You should see the list of stuff we don't speak about, because we're just too busy doing water bottle tears. Mad time at the minute, by the way, everyone. In it, like mad time, mad period of football. Like, what is going on? I don't know what's happening. I've had half a summer with Berta. I can't predict. I don't know who we're going to sign. I don't know who anyone is. I don't know who I am. I don't know what day it is. What's going on?
Yeah. Mate, I'm literally the same. So I was talking to George beforehand, and he seems quite confident in terms of what's going to happen. I'm like, I don't have a clue, mate. I genuinely do not have a clue what's going to happen, and that makes me feel uneasy, very uneasy, to be honest. Like yesterday, I'll be honest, my head was on Mars yesterday.
About Madueke?
Yeah. It was on Mars. Absolutely, like finished my head.
So George and I did a scouted on Madueke, which is coming out tomorrow for patrons, YouTube members, if you want to go check that out. And we'll obviously, the discussion side will be out on YouTube. And I don't want to do that thing where you do, I watched him for an hour on Y Scout. And actually, like, realistically, I've probably seen, like, I've watched him obviously in Games Against Us. I've watched the Europa League final, Conference League final. I've watched, like, highlights of him, seen games in the concert, but, like, watching him properly, that's really the first time I've, like, really focused on him outside of, like, you know, some YouTube comps or whatever. And I will say, sorry to spoil it a little bit, I was a lot more impressed than I thought I'd be. And I was a lot more frustrated than I thought I'd be. I can see why Chelsea, you know, Chelsea fans always like, Madueke is so frustrated. I really get it. He does so much right. So much right. And then he gets to the final third and it just all falls apart. But yeah, it's interesting. It's one of those things. The problem is with these sorts of players, right? We'll get into the Madueke chat, right? The problem with these players is that if but some maybes, they're not absolutes. You know what I mean? And we need absolutes. And I think, again, my sort of overall position, which I'm going to ask you for in a second, my overall position on Madueke is like, yeah, if. And this is the problem. We're in the if era and we need absolutes. Like, Arsenal fans need a Rodrigo, a Gyökeres, who, you know, even if I have issues with the player, he is what he is. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're going, yeah, but if we did it, and no one wants to do that. No one wants to. It's what we said on the podcast, right? It's no one wants to squint for talent. So there's a world in which Madueke makes sense to me. You know, if we're signing Eze and Rodrigo, I think as we said on the main pod. But right now, for the fee being touted, one thing I will say before I come to you, there's a guy called Harry Brooks who's put stuff out publicly as well. So I don't think I'm like telling on him here. He's worked with Madueke one-on-one, and he's his individual development coach. Now, I mean, I've met Harry a number of times. Really, really nice guy. He's actually been on the pod, I think. I think he came on the pod at one point, or maybe came on TDK or something. Really, really, really good dude. I really trust his opinion on players. And if you go through his sort of canon of work, he's got a really, really good opinions. He's so high on Madueke. Now, he works with him. He's paid by him, right? So, like, you can take that with a pinch of salt or whatever. It's up to you. He's so convinced he's like about to bang. So this could be a buying the dip thing. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, for me, I said it on the main pod, and my thoughts haven't changed on it in terms of it's not necessarily about Madueke as the player, because I actually do like the player. I think he's got some really good raw attributes and qualities, but it's the feasibility. And I mean, firstly, when that bid came in, and I'm not oblivious to the fact that the overall financial outlay on Madueke reportedly looks to be cheaper than an Eze, than a Rodrigo, you know, when you take into account the reported wage that he'd be willing to... Yeah, you would. You absolutely
what
would.
do you
mean? But I think for me, it's just a case of, firstly, why are we rushing to get this done? Because he's going to go on holiday, right? Because he's been playing in the Club World Cup. So he's not going to be ready for pre-season immediately. He's going to have time off. And secondly, I just think going in with that sort of bid as your first one, reportedly, I just don't get it. I did say on the main pod that Chelsea sell their players for profit, so they spent what 35 million for Madueke, I think. Something it was. Like that from PSV, they were always going to get at least that. I said that if this is going to happen, we're going to pay more than that. Hands down.
Well, he's on a crazy contract as well. I think it expires in 2030, and they've got an option as well. They got an option to 2031. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think for me, like I said it as well previously, in that if Madueke has insane potential through the left, that's the only real way in which I see profound logic to it. Whereas right now, I look at it and think, I think everyone in the chat, you've got Rodrigo or Eze. I don't believe you're going to get Rodrigo, Eze, and Madueke. I'm telling you, it becomes attacking talent hoarding. It genuinely does. I understand and I appreciate the idea that we want so many players so that we can counter events that happened last season when we were decimated with injuries. But I don't think that's strong squad planning. And secondly, I think for me, you have to look at it from a player's perspective. When you look at the number of players that we would have across the front line with Rodrigo, Eze, Madueke on top of Saka, Martinelli, Havertz, Odegaard, Wanyeri, Jesus. I think I'm missing one as well. You know, you're then thinking to yourself, how are you going to be able to manage that group properly? And how are you going to be able to make everyone feel content? And that is important. I feel like, you know, we can't just ignore that. But my main point with this is if we get, let's say, Rodrigo, which seems to be the number one target for us across the front line. You know, whether it's centre forward or left wing, I think that's like the big one that we want to do.
Yeah,
we solved the right wing backup option with that. You know, on top of the Wanyeri in terms of changing the dynamics that I've mentioned many times. So it's a case of like, if Madueke has been brought in as the backup right winger to ease the workload that is placed on Saka's shoulders, and I mentioned as well in that stylistically, there's a lot of parallels there with Saka, although the quality difference is ridiculous. The levels apart. Saka's
the final third quality,
especially,
yeah.
It's a different level. But my feeling is that, you know, spending that much money on a backup, if that is the idea, it doesn't make sense to me. The only way it makes sense is if Mikel sees like really big potential for the left-hand side, you know, because I
see that.
I'm looking at the money in terms of the fee right now. And again, I know it's cheaper than Rodrigo and Eze, but the fee suggests to me that this is someone who is going to have a major role in the team, not just a backup. So yeah, it's so many thoughts, but
I'm not necessarily saying this is my thing. This is my opinion, but just to put two counterpoints across. One, I think we're used to, as Arsenal fans, £50 million should be a starting player, right? Is that the world we're going into?
Maybe not. Yeah, maybe that's.
I don't know.
Changing.
I'm not saying it is or isn't,
changing.
but like I think we are used to, as fans, £50 million being, well, you need to be in my starting 11 and be like change my life a little bit. And actually, because what would Madueke come in? I'm sure someone in the chat will be able to tell me. What would Madueke come in terms of how expensive signings are? He'd be like in our top 10 or something. He'd be up there if he was £50 million.
He would be in our top 10.
I think he'd be top 10. So like, but maybe that world is changing. So that's there.
That's a good point.
The second thing is this. I do keep coming back to this thing from Scouted Football, and if you're listening to this, so this is how the physical output of the Premier League players has increased since 2018-19. You have the number of high-intensity actions, so greater than 20 kilometers an hour per 90 minutes, and the peak sprint velocity, 99th percentile in kilometers per hour. It's going up and up and up, right? You're looking at Spurs signing potentially Morgan Gibbs-White and Mohamed Kudus, and having Kulusevski and Maddison in the middle of the pitch, right? I'm seeing runners. I'm seeing even with City, or you know, with whether it's Ait Nouri or you know your Frimpong. I'm seeing a lot of running power wherever it is on the pitch being added to teams, Kirkez, etc. at Liverpool, right? Yeah. I'm seeing a lot of running power, and if we again, this wouldn't be a justification for why we would do Madueke and nothing else. But if we did Madueke plus a couple of other things, let's say we sold Trossard and we did Madueke, Eze, and Rodrigo, that may feel like hoarding. I don't think we would ever get there. But when we're paying £50 million for that, even though it's a backup, I would begin to go, how much is it worth to keep in this league with this graph existing? How much is it worth to have someone like Madueke, who does have top 1% physical qualities? I think something that really stood out to me on the Scouted today, mate. And George points out, because I kind of went into the Scout and I was like, I can see he has something physically that's really impressive, but I couldn't quite name it. And obviously George brilliantly put it down. His stride length for a guy of his size is crazy. It's unbelievable. In a different, if you watch Christian Norgaard, one of my issues with Christian Norgaard, he can't quite open his legs out in the same. It's like he's running like that. If you can't see me on screen, it's like he's running like that. Madueke is running like that. It's absolutely mad. Sorry if you can't see that, but it's crazy, and he gets his legs and he really covers ground. So, and people go, "Who cares?" But okay, but from the club's perspective, in a league that's trending this way, when all of your competitors are signing that, does it make sense to allocate more of your budget on someone who can really, really run? Does that give you is that an incentive to pay an extra £10 million for something like that? I don't know. Again, those are two things, that the £50 million thing about the backup and that are counter arguments to not doing it. Basically, I don't know what I feel particularly.
Yeah, I mean, when I actually think of Madueke in terms, when we don't look at, his strong foot being left-footed, and we just look at the player in isolation, and you talk about the running power, and you talk about the ability to carry over large distances, that's things that this team does need, and how many times have I said it on the pod where I slightly differ between you and George in the sense of, for me, this window, and it was the same as the previous window, is all about adding things to the front line that we lack. Qualities that we lack. And that's why the Gyökeres thing, as I've watched a bit more, I understand it. I do understand why we're pursuing it. And, even though he's definitely not my preferred type, but I can easily see a player who's going to add a lot of quality in specific areas that we lack. And it's the same with Madueke in that sense. But then it's a case of going back to everything else that we spoke about already, about the whole planning and the construction of the squad and the fee. That's where, you know, I just struggle with it. But I think the intensity point in terms of how much the league is going up, there's a really good clip of Unai Emery talking about the tactical homogeneity of teams off the ball. I knew you were off the ball in a specific facet, and we could go into this with the Gabriel Hines appointment as well, Hines appointment, in terms of where the game is going across Europe, where teams are moving away from space-orientated pressing to outright man-to-man pressing. You know, and again, there's disadvantages there as well, and we won't do that all the time. But everything's moving towards fast pace, high intensity,
1% athletes.
And he mentioned that. And Unai, what was really interesting as well is Unai Emery mentioned that that's not something he would want to go with as his idea, but he's recognised what's been happening with other teams. So
absolutely. Tyler Blake, you can't convince me. Madueke also, I love it, and this is in no way a slight on you. It's so you. Those videos of like managers talking about little things. I love it. It's you really love them. It's great. Yeah. Tyler Blake, you can't convince me Madueke is 50 times better than Olivia Smith, world record women's transfer, apparently. By the way, love this from Arsenal. We don't cover the women's side here. Are the first ever women's transfer over £1 million is going to be from Arsenal. And I love that. I absolutely love that.
It's what Champions League winners do.
It's the Arsenal, mate, showing ambition. Oh, we're going to do that on the men's side. Look, Tyler, I get it. I completely get the reservations about Madueke. And when I watched him today, he was incredibly frustrating. I can't even lie. Like, he was really frustrating. It's, again, I suppose it comes back to this, that you can make an argument. You can make an argument. You can always make an argument. There's an argument for every player in the league. It's just, are we at the stage in the project where we can be making an argument? What we can't be doing is making an argument with, I think people wanted basically 2 upgrades in the starting 11, pretty much. You can't be making an argument for those guys. You can begin to do that if that's not what he's doing, but currently that's the order of business. I will say, with like there's something going on with the Jokeris situation, the fact that we're supposedly only a few million apart, and that's not developing. With the fact that Rodrigo, like there's reports coming out about Rodrigo and blah 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 blah. Like the fact that Šeško's gone quiet, even Eze, like the links popped up and then it went quiet again. I don't know what's happening, but it doesn't feel like we're moving. It feels like we're waiting for something. I feel, and I think it's Rodrigo.
It feels like we're going like. It feels like we're going everywhere. It's just like all over the place, but not in the sense of there's not a plan there. I'm pretty sure. I'm adamant there is a plan. You know, I think Mikhail alluded to it post.
And there'll be a plan.
But there's a plan that is in place. Yeah, there's a plan that is in place. But right now, with all the links that are coming at us, you know, so quickly, it makes you feel confused. Like for example, Mascara. I've not heard about that for the last week and a half. You know what I mean? So
Kevin in the chat's a good point. Can we do Noni on loan instead? Like something like that would make a bit more sense to me. Like it would, like a loan with an option or something like that would. Yeah, that would. I
feel like it would also be for a lot of fans. It'd be a lot more. You could stomach it if we had done a Rodrigo already or someone like, you know, because it goes back to the order doesn't equal priority. But I think there's the apprehension where we're going with
easy to say.
Yeah, exactly. But that's why for me, you know, I'm reacting as a fan, and you get stressed about it because what are the implications of doing this? That does that have on an Eze, a Rodrigo, etc. You know.
Yeah. Someone's asked for our opinion on the gear this season, so we're going to bring out the preseason. This is the latest preseason stuff. I mean, if there's something Arsenal do well, it is. I quite like this.
Do you like that? Not too
and these are really cool. I saw Zubamendi in one of these today, and it's really cool.
It's giving me beach vibes.
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think there was it's called like the. Where did we land for preseason? It's like not Mandalay. I can't remember what it's called. Wherever
What, for
we've gone for pre-season, they called it the something wherever it is, wherever we landed, collection. I'm like, are we really doing pre-season inspired collections?
There will always be a buyer.
There will be. How many Arsenal-based things do you own? Like in your
I think I've told you
in
this
your
before. I
wardrobe?
don't buy a lot of like Arsenal merch tops. I'll tell you what, I was actually gonna buy the 25-26 home jersey
Yeah.
when I looked at it online, but I saw it in person and I got the ick. I got the
Yeah?
ick. Yeah, it didn't fit what I saw online. I feel the print is just a bit too much out there, personally. So
I hear it.
I've
I hear
sacked
it.
that off. I've sacked that off this year. So I'm going another year without buying one. The last one was obviously the black 22-23 away one,
you
which
are.
I
You love that
absolutely
one.
love. Yeah.
Absolutely love it.
I
Yeah.
spend my money on like, the tickets as opposed to like the merch. Yeah.
It's £80 for the shirt.
That's not even
And
the
I te-
authentic one, probably.
And I text Josh and I said, within my fees to prop the club, can you just send me can you send me some free stuff? And he said, no, that's not part of the KSC propaganda fee. So it's a shame.
Yeah, it's a shame. But maybe the away kit. Maybe the away kit might be one to.
I'm not sure you just got that joke, but we'll move on.
Can we try it again?
I texted Josh Kroenke
Yeah.
to ask for him to include a new Arsenal shirt in my KSC propaganda fee.
Okay, fine.
We got there in the end.
Fine.
Yeah, we got there. That was tough.
Is Alex lagging for you guys as well? It's only like subtle.
I'm sorry, I'm lagging. I blame Virgin Media.
You're good though.
Sorry if I'm
You're overall you're good.
Okay,
Just like
sorry.
Yeah.
People saying painful in the chat. Before we finish up on Mbuemo, not Mbuemo. People are saying Mbuemo in the chat. Nicholas, we get it, bro. Mbuemo, yeah, we get it. What do you guys think of Madueke? Let us know what you think.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think of Madueke. I'm curious about this because I'm sure there'll be loads of people like, I'm sorry, and I said this on the video this guy today. If you're abusing a player, obviously I've heavily critiqued a player this week who might be playing for Arsenal, but I'm not abusing the player.
It's different.
And if he comes to Arsenal, I will support him in an Arsenal shirt, right?
Yeah.
If you're abusing a player, it's to the point he's had to turn off his Instagram comments before he's even played for the club. It is absolutely embarrassing. It is so embarrassing.
It doesn't
it's
even
so cringe.
It happens at all clubs. It's actually crazy. What it is, it's faceless accounts, right? Who do it because they know there are no repercussions. Genuinely, they know that they can do it and get away with it, and it's nuts. They would never do that in real life. You'd never say some of the stuff that they say to someone in real life because you know what will happen? The wrong person you'll say it to, and you get smacked. It genuinely will. It's just like it's the harsh reality. It's like
I saw this. I found this guy on X abusing me yesterday, and I was just like, it was called like Adam Zero did or something, faceless, obviously, and it was like 7 tweets in a row, and I was like, literally just like, you're a effing this, you're a noodle head, you whatever, and I got to this tweet right where he goes, no, I watch him, and I'm a regular watcher of TDK because I try and wait to see if this guy will say something sensible. I was like, all right. So you watch my videos, but you're just sat there like hoping I'll reply.
Yeah, I've been getting some interesting messages this past week because of something.
We're not going to talk about that. Yeah, I mean, Noodlehead is pretty fun. If you're gonna call me, if you get a slander name for me would be Noodlehead. That's fair. I'll buy that. What's your slander name?
Dweeb, nerd, probably.
Yeah,
I remember I got a lot of stick when I called Declan Rice cringe. That was one.
Yeah, but you've repeated that many, many times.
Yeah, when the moment's there, I'll strike, I'll pounce, and I'll go for it.
This is what made me laugh, Stevie, that he's watching me like, oh, I'm gonna watch another video.
How sad! How sad can you be to do something like that? Genuinely.
Yeah. Oh, this is the other one as well. Latte film says Baldy Locks. The other one that gets me is I said on a Q&A ages ago that until I was 6 or 7, I was a United fan because my dad was a United fan and I changed. And I get like angry people in my like, you're a United fan. You go back to supporting United, and they're being deadly serious. And I'm like, you're annoyed that a 6-year-old supported Man United. Just to make you clear what's happened here, you're annoyed a 6-year-old supported his dad's club, and then at 6 years old, when I couldn't dress myself, changed to Arsenal. That's what you're annoyed about. I just want to let you know that.
Could you not dress yourself at 6?
I probably could. I was doing tactical analysis at 6, mate. You watch me. Let's move on.
I was out there making money.
I was out there making money, baby. Let's do this. Right. Trossard. There is some. How's my internet, by the way? I'm a little bit in and out, I know. Sorry.
You're doing okay. You're doing good.
Okay, cool. Yeah, apologies. Virgin. Oh. No, not even going to say it. That's it. La Manga. They've called it the La Manga. Like, it does look. Come on. It does look quite good. Let me just get a picture of Saka. It looks cool on Saka. Oh, we haven't done thumbnail check. Let's do that.
Yeah, we haven't done. Yeah, we didn't do it last week. Was it last week? Yeah, we didn't do it last week as well.
Come on, that looks quite cool.
Yeah, it looks good. Is he not warm though?
That would be very warm, yeah.
Yeah, like I'd be struggling with that.
Yeah. Guys, you can spam it in the chat all you want. We're not going to reply to it and we're not going to do it. So, I mean, keep going because it just helps the algorithm.
Yeah,
we're not
go
on.
Do it. Keep doing it.
Thank
go
you.
On.
Because you'll literally just add viewers. So thank you so much. What was the? Oh yeah, Trossard. Okay, let's do it. Trossard to Fenerbahce. Supposedly, he's agreed personal terms. There's some rumors coming out of I think but from Ellis Bus Arash, who is a sports presenter.
I've not heard anything. I saw a few tweets. I didn't see any reports.
Turkey. Yeah. So basically, Fenerbahce have reached an agreement with Leandro Trossard on personal terms, according to someone in Turkey. The Turkish club continued to negotiate with Arsenal regarding the transfer fee, but the feeling is positive. In general, how do you feel about that?
Sorry, could you repeat that? I was looking at the chat.
Oh, what?
This is going mad. Yeah.
DBL's final is fire. I don't know who that is. Who's DBL?
DBL's.
Sorry, Josh, I don't know who that is.
EBL?
We'll talk about Gyökeres another time. Yeah, we've spoken about Gyökeres.
I've done my research now as well.
Oh, I'm excited. For
we'll do it on the main pod maybe. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, essentially, the idea. Well, Fenerbahce have reached an agreement with Leandro Trossard on personal terms. The Turkish club continues to negotiate with Arsenal regarding the transfer fee, but the feeling is positive. I think, especially with if Eze is coming in, this might be the sale we need to do Eze. Supposedly, Arteta is interested in Eze and Madueke at the same time. And if we're still pushing for Rodrigo, there is, if that's a world, which I just really doubt, but if that is a world that's going to happen, there is no way that happens without a sale. So I'm pretty convinced that Trossard's gonna go in that case.
And for me, it makes sense. I've always said between Trossard and Martinelli, especially with Gyökeres as well, looking likely to come in. I think who is Gyökeres going to benefit more from? It's going to be Martinelli as opposed to Trossard, right? And then when you're bringing in someone like an Eze or Rodrigo, again, you want to keep that straight line runner in Martinelli in there, as opposed to a Trossard who is more ball to feet, who's going to be coming in, which is coming deeper areas, which is Eze's bread and butter, And I just feel like for me, when we're looking at how we construct the front line, I'd want more variety in tools and skill set. Yeah. And when I see Trossard there, when I see Eze there, I think there's a clash. It's not to say that they are very similar players, but they have qualities and areas within the pitch that they thrive the most in that are similar, as opposed to Martinelli. And that's why I think it makes sense. And Trossard, I mentioned before on the pod where it's like incremental diminishing returns season after season after season. And it's not to say that he hasn't been good in every campaign so far, because I think he has when you consider the entire financial outlay. But it's someone I don't think we're going to be able to extract more out of in the following season. That's my gut feeling.
Yeah. Bro, by the end of 25-26, he's going to be nearly 30. Well, coming up to 32. I think if I saw a fee quoted that was 20 million And I was like, if we can get 20 million for Leandro Trossard right now, I completely agree. In terms of, I think there just becomes a bit of a redundancy. And I think I've said this before. Trossard is a brilliant player, and I actually think he's really suited the role that he's played basically in the squad, which is a kind of versatile forward, like coming off the bench, etc., and all that stuff. Because I think he has that, and I think it's funny, even with Madueke, right? And maybe another pro in the pro side, even though there are many cons, is I think if he was coming off the bench because of his physical attributes, he would be able to impact games late on. I think he'd really stress defenses. I think Trossard does it in a different way where it's more picking up smart positions. He's mentally very switched on, really wants to prove himself. And it's like the sort of the Solskjaer gene. You have certain players who like can really impact games, and he's been that sort of player for us. I think that's really good.
Jermaine
But if you
Defoe type.
Yeah. And I think that's a really, really good thing. But like, yeah, I think for 20 million pounds, I think if we can do that for a 31-year-old, I think that's
On top
really,
of what
really
he's
good
already
option.
given us as well. Like tried and
100%.
tested, immediate impact. That 22-23 campaign when he came in January, his numbers were off the chart and the impact was profound. So it's just a good time to sell, I think, right now. So
I can see the chat going absolutely crazy. This is the end of the sort of we're not going to talk about it, so you can carry on, but that'll be the last of the acknowledgement of it. There you go. Let's move on to Heinze. Gabriel Heinze. Let's go, guys. There was a really interesting article out in the Mail Online, which is behind a paywall, but I found a way, Rohan, my boy. He does sound like a bit of a madman.
Well, he was as a player. He was
so this article, which you can go find if you want, it's there's bits of it. So it's his person. There was this basically an interview they did in the article with Ale Mangiatera, who's a sports journalist in the Rosario area. Heinz's time as Newell's manager got off to a good start in terms of his performance and the results he achieved. And then it says his personality is perhaps his worst aspect. Imagine someone saying that about you. He didn't have a good relationship with the press and always felt that every criticism was part of a personal attack. It was a very motivated start and a very mentally draining finish. And physically draining too, given the practice of weighing his players twice a day while sending them assignments via WhatsApp. If players turned up to training and did not already know what they were meant to be doing, they would be punished. And then later on in the article, it says, Heinze is known to be a very stubborn and uncompromising coach with little self-criticism. He always believes he's right and is tenacious in his convictions. He also has a history of clashing with journalists, having had issues with the press at every club he's managed.
Doesn't seem someone who's set out for like outright first team, like as the outright manager. I think that's the problem there, isn't it, in terms of his personality? Like, and that's why I think I really don't want to like go too far into some of those things that he's done at those clubs, because it's a different role, isn't it? He's not the first team manager here. He's the backroom stuff, and he's going to be giving his thoughts, his opinions, and his ideas. And I actually think, for me, that I wrote a tweet out, and it was doing some research on a couple of articles that I saw on top of a YouTube channel that had a lot of clips that he was talking about his like ideology and his philosophy. And again, I don't have profound, like massive knowledge of him as a coach, but you can do a bit of digging to kind of fill in the gaps of what type of guy he could be and the effect that he could have on Mikel. And there were three things that I noticed. One of them was that Mikel's always wanted to recruit a high pressing type coach. He wanted Pep Linders back in the day, and there were like really big links. He wanted. There was like, I think it was like 2 years ago actually. The links were incessant. And now we've got very much a Marcelo Bielsa disciple. That is what he is. And he's mentioned it in videos where, in terms of pressing from the front, winning the ball back, that is the aim. High intensity, sprint. And that is very similar to the way that we play. The other thing is that he's very much of that positional type coach where he has those ideas and always looking to kind of build superiority in terms of how he goes through the thirds in whatever way. And the final point, and this is kind of a little bit of guesswork, but again, it was from one of the clips that he was speaking from in that YouTube channel. And he mentioned how he likes to pick players depending on the matchups that they go against and the types of teams. So I remember he said something about he picked this fullback instead of a different type of fullback because that fullback wasn't going to be against an outright winger. He was going to be against a midfielder. So he picked him instead because he didn't need the out and out 1v1 defensive ability there. He needed someone who's a little bit more attack minded in interior zones. And that's where I'm thinking to myself, perhaps he could give us some help there where we see a bit more variation in how we approach different teams in terms of the way that we use certain players, like Declan Rice, like Ben White or Julian Timber, let's say. It's a bit of guesswork, but he's mentioned how, he's very pragmatic in that sense where he wants to maintain the ideas that he has, but he adapts the team and the lineup depending on the types of matchups that he expects.
And I think there's a bit more room for that at Arsenal. I think the problem with last season, right, is so much of the time we had our hand tied behind our back. And like you couldn't, if you wanted to play Ben White over Julian Timber or the other way around or whatever it is, like you couldn't do it. But actually, I think next season, I hope with a deeper squad and with actually 25 registered players, which would be a start, wouldn't it? I think would be. I do think there's some scope for that, and I think also it's difficult, isn't it? Like even Declan Rice, we've spoken many times about like it feels like there should be games where he's deeper, and it feels like there should be games where he's higher.
Exactly.
I don't know. Obviously, you're right. We're kind of speculating a little bit. I mean, it's interesting. We've replaced again. I don't want to do too much sort of personality analysis because we don't know these people. But it's interesting. It sounds like Carlos Cuesta was kind of closer to the players, was kind of more of a mentor, was kind of more someone that they could relate to, with what sounds like a bit of a taskmaster in hindsight. Someone who's going to be like, right, what you're doing. And I wonder. Again, this is all speculation. I wonder, does that allow Mikel to be a little bit less intense because you've got someone who is a bit more like on you? Can Mikel drop off a little bit? That might be what he's looking for a little bit. It might be something he's thought, actually, I'm going to allow someone else to take the when I lose a duel side of things.
Do you reckon he'll be more, you see more of an animated Gabriel Hines relative to like a Carlos Cuesta on the pitch potentially? Because though, again, one of the things that he mentioned as well,
sorry to cut you off, but because you need someone, someone pushing. You need it's the carrot and the stick, isn't it? You need someone with the stick, but you need someone with the carrot. And I wonder if he thinks maybe this is a nice moment to flip.
But again, it's kind of like how you can't treat every single player in the same way. It's like I remember like Eden Hazard was coached slightly differently in terms of how the coaches approached him relative to like a different player. Some players need that like kick, don't they, to really get them going, whereas other players might be perhaps a little bit softer and they're not going to react appropriately to that. And perhaps that's where Mikel, I think, could kind of lean into kind of managing a Gabriel Hines, because right now you've seen it seems like he seems very old school in the way that he approaches. Like, right, it's this way. You need to work hard. You need to do this, but not everyone reacts that way. Some people will love it, but some will be like, "Oh, this is a bit too much." So but it's again for me, what it shows is, again, we're putting a lot of like emphasis on experience, not just with Andrea Berta, but now with someone like Gabriel Heinze. He is more experienced than Carlos Cuesta. He's been in the game longer. So maybe there's just that parallel there as well.
Let me try and find a comment from someone who's watching the show.
It's not easy.
Not many. Oh, here we go. Clivey. Thank you, Clive. Remember, there's 60 games needed, quality rotation. Yeah, and I think this is maybe part of. We're guessing, right? But I think maybe part of the thinking with managing the squad better is in those tactical matchups. Can we be a little bit more? Can we be a bit smarter, basically? And that also means we can take some minutes off people. I'm really excited, man, for the squad season, theoretically, that we feel like we really do have two proper options in every position. And I really like a player like Eze. I'd be happy with him playing 4 positions across the front 5. And that's those sorts of players like that is, and Trossard, like it got to a point where he's versatile. This is the thing, problem with versatility, isn't it? Jesus is versatile. I don't want him playing left wing. Trossard is versatile. I don't really want him playing left centre mid. I don't want him at 9. Really, the only place. So you can have versatility, but if I don't like back it, like ultimately it's kind of, it becomes relevant. And I think with players, I do think Madueke could go both sides. I think Rodrigo obviously can go both sides, whether we want to push that to him, particularly if to sign, I'm not sure. But
the interesting thing, every time Mikel, like, when we sign a player and Mikel gives a small snippet of what he feels, he always mentions versatility. He always mentions it every
Yeah.
single time. You know, and I think it can go both ways. Like, for example, Kivior's played a couple of games at right back at Arsenal, yeah. So you could say he's versatile there, but I don't want Kivior playing right back, to be honest. So, but Eze, the big reason that I'm massive on Eze is because it's not necessarily right now a specific role that I have in mind for him. It's the skill gap that we have within the squad. 1v1s, ball striking, sheer ingenuity, being able to create without needing support, you know, transitions, etc. These are things that Eze adds that we didn't necessarily have in abundance last season, you know, and that's why I think, you know, when you go online, that if there's one player that the whole fan base is in agreement on, it's Eze, you know, and I don't just think it's the Hale End factor. I think it's just the fact that this is a serious baller who is in prime age and he's ready, you know. So
should we talk Eze? Because I think it's interesting, like the stuff sort of slightly quietened on Eze. But there was stuff today, supposedly Mikel wants both Eze and Madueke. And to be honest, like, I'm kind of not surprised. And I'm going to steal a point that George made, which I think is a really good one. It is interesting to me that whoever we're targeting, whether it's Šeško, whether it's Gyökeres, whether it's Madueke, whether it's Eze, like, these guys who can run over long distances. We're clearly trying to add and carry over long distances, and we're clearly trying to add that trait, and also shoot at the end of that as well. And so not lose power. And it's something that I think we haven't had for a while. Let's talk Eze, because I just, there is this interview that goes around. Often,
I know which one it is. It's
I love it so much, bro. Because he's literally like, I'll see if we can play it. Let me see if I can try and find it.
BBC Sport, is it?
Yeah, it's on BBC Sport. Let me see if we can try and find it. Because I think one of the things for me with Eze is, like, if we were signing a player who was 19 and had this kind of, like, you know, precocious quality or whatever, you might worry, okay, but is Mikel... Because I think it's fair to, you know, we are generally supporters of Mikel, but I think it's fair to say that, like, ultimately there are times where I think he's might be restricted players a little bit more than we've wanted. I think that's fair to say, right? That's one of his weaknesses as a coach. I don't think you can restrict this, and this is what I want to show. Hang on, just because I know who's watching, and I don't want to give people my email. I have to be very careful on this stream.
It's actually nuts.
Oh, guys, do you have nothing better to do? It's a Thursday evening. No, Tristan. Thanks for super chat, but no. Where is it? Chrome tab. This one. Can you hear
this? I am.
Yeah, I can hear it.
Can you hear that? Yeah, great.
Yeah.
I absolutely love this.
It's easy to lose sight of, like, why, especially the type of player I am, why I'm doing what I'm doing. Why do I run with the ball? Why do I try things? Why am I creative? Why do I do things that maybe players wouldn't think to do? And the reason is, it's for the people that are watching. It's what you're doing to people in the stands and how you can get people off their feet. That's what football's about. And it feels like football is starting to shift a bit, and there's maybe not as much of that. But as long as I play, man, that's all I want to do.
I love that. Like, absolutely love it. And I bet, by the way, if you asked him, if you pressed him and he wasn't on camera, he would say Mikel and Pep. I bet he would.
Yeah.
Because it's like it's 100%.
But then isn't it, we mentioned this as well on the main pod, it's like right now Eze for Crystal Palace, he's their linchpin. So the idea of him being a ball hog right now, being one of his critiques, I don't have a big critique on that, because I think what it is, it's more down to him being the guy where Palace don't have a lot of the ball. So when I get the ball, I need to make something happen. And that's where you see him lose the ball quite a lot. If you watch Eze for Palace, he tries so many things and he loses the ball. And sometimes you think, oh, it's quite poor that he's lost it there. It's because he is the guy that they go to produce quality in the final third, you know. But then it's kind of like, okay, you can have that mindset and that approach, and I totally agree with it. But it would need to be tempered at Arsenal, and it would be tempered at any of the top clubs. It generally would be, even PSG, Man City, etc. They would have to temper that. But it's a case of, like, how do you balance that? How do you balance that individual freedom, being able to lose the ball over high volume, but still be efficient, really? So, and that's what I'm interested to see, because it kind of feels a little bit like So Jack Grealish, when he was at Aston Villa, Jack Grealish was the linchpin. You know, he would get the ball, carry, and make things happen. Again, he'd lose the ball a lot, but then he goes to Manchester City, where it becomes a lot more about efficiency and about, you know, I think you naturally improve technically when you're under a Pep Guardiola, and your awareness tactically of the game improves by tenfold. But it obviously has taken a big element of that individual freedom that Jack Grealish had at Aston Villa, and therefore it's led to people looking at him slightly differently now. Well, not slightly, but massively differently, because the move hasn't panned out. So again, it goes back to how do you balance that sheer like street football vibe to a team that is looking to, you know, is build on positional principles. So yeah, that's the
no, it is really exciting. I think and I think just dropping that into this team, ready-made, pre-produced, especially for the release clause and the release clause and the installments, I think it's really exciting. Thumbnail check.
Yes, please.
While you're all here. No need, Madueke. Shout out Forder. This is pretty good. I like it. I like the smoke. I like the shades of Willian. I don't know where the hidden Rohan is.
Let's have a look. Wow, look.
We'll have a look. Of course, we'll have a look. Oh, it's a tattoo. That's very good.
Oh, that is very good. How did you spot that?
Did
someone tell you? Did someone?
That is no, genuinely no. That is very, very good.
The chat's not going to tell you anything at the moment.
That might be the best. I'm not looking, mate. That might be the best hidden Rohan I think I've seen. That's really good.
Very good. He's really good with that. I reckon Forder needs to do like a Where's Wally book.
Yeah.
Yeah. It'd be like elite. You wouldn't find Wally.
That's cooked. I'm giving that solid 8.5.
Yeah, I'll buy that.
Yeah, happy with that. What were we about to do? I had a plan.
Well,
what were we about to do? We were about to talk something. That was it. I was going to do super chat. Sorry. Big Cheese became a YouTube member. Thank you so much, Big Cheese. Appreciate you. Or YA become a YouTube member. Thank you so much, good sir. Clivey Baby says, what differences do you find in Haaland and Yorkes? I think you could compare. Similarities. I think you could compare some of the transition power. I do think if you look at like the top speed numbers, Haaland's clocking like 34 and Yorkes is clocking like 30 and 31. So they're a bit of a difference, but I think you can compare some of the running numbers. I think you could compare some of how once they face you up, you're kind of done a little bit. I think there's something in that. I think you could compare some of the technical quality. I do think Haaland's better technically than Yorkes, but I think you can compare some of like the whole play and stuff, some of the linking. I think you could, in terms of how much time it takes for Haaland to do stuff, which is why he's sometimes targeted with the stuff he is. But I do think Yorkes maybe is a touch off that. I do see sometimes people go, well, Haaland scored this many goals, so he'll definitely translate. Haaland was scoring 40 goals in 41 games at 20 years old, at 21 years old, wherever he was, in the Bundesliga.
In the Bundesliga.
It's a very different thing. And when the Portuguese league is below the Belgian league and the championship, I just have more questions. Again, my whole point on Yorkes has never been he won't translate or he is rubbish. It's just
a doubt.
It's a big risk. It's a big doubt for me.
Yeah. I think naturally, because of the incessant runs that Yorkes makes, there is the Haaland comparison. But Yorkes is very quick over long distances, but Haaland's a different animal, right? And Haaland is way better pinning centre backs, back to goal. Like it's not even a debate there. But I do see some comparisons. But I do feel like I go back to it, and maybe we could discuss in the main chat as the main podcast with Yorkes, because I've watched the games now, and I feel like at ease in terms of I feel at ease, like, and again I'll mention, like, he for me he strikes me as someone who he's incredibly clunky. Like, I don't think you can hide away from that. It's not an Arsene Wenger coded type player, right? But he's effective at what he does in a lot of things. And again, I think the biggest positive, and we've mentioned this many times in terms of what is the biggest area that Arsenal can improve. One of the biggest areas is the left-hand side. Yorkes naturally cheats towards that side, naturally, right?
Yep.
And then you look at Rodrigo, you look at Eze, look at these players that we're linked to, it signals change and also the impact that could have on a Martinelli. So I actually see a lot of positives, and especially with the fee that is being reported before, although I think there's been a bit of like the deal stalled a bit reportedly recently, but from what I saw before, it was kind of like 56 million. I think that's a solid fee for a player who has noticeable weaknesses, but adds a lot of things that this team does need. So yeah. I'm a little bit more. I'm happy with it. For sure.
To put you on the spot,
yeah.
How much do you think the different, like the percentage increase in value of the team, or like percentage increase in how much better we are, would come from, let's say we signed the best left winger on the market, or we signed the best centre forward on the market, which would be better? Like which would provide the bigger value?
I would say the best left winger on the market, because I think the best left winger on the market right now is Rodrigo, and Rodrigo signals change, and the biggest change that we can make is through the left-hand side. So that's the way I see it. And like, when you look at, when we look at Sesko and Gyökeres, I'll maintain Sesko I prefer, and I'll stand by that. But right now, when you're talking about like opportunity costs, Sesko and Gyökeres, they actually are similar within specific weaknesses. So, like for example, when you go long, as we do to Kai Havertz, and you're looking for him to win flick-ons, Gyökeres is not good at that. He isn't. Kai Havertz is good at that. Sesko will become really good at that, but right now he's not good at that as well. You know. But so when I look at the two players, I don't see like a massive difference as of today, right now, in terms of immediate impact. I feel both can make the impact, but right now I'd say Gyökeres probably edges Sesko in that regard as of today. Whereas when you look at left wing, if we sign Madueke, let's say, and that comes at the cost of a Rodrigo, that's a huge opportunity cost. Like that's a massive, massive drop off in terms of what we could have done. So when you're looking at it relatively between like Gyökeres and Sesko as of today, the jump is not as big. Well, I don't think there is a substantial jump at all relative to like a Madueke and a Rodrigo. Like that's where it's so I do feel that the biggest driver there is through the left, and I would say the left wing.
Yeah, and I know you've gone to specifics there, and I don't necessarily disagree, but I do think that the left hand side, like I watched a comp of Havertz against Bournemouth 23-24.
Yeah.
And I was like, mate, like I'm not like I don't see that quality. I'm not saying he's perfect or is the best centre forward on the market, but I don't see that quality and the impact on the team from left wing at the minute. So to me, no matter who, let's finish for a second, I do think fixing the left-hand side is actually the bigger priority for me, weirdly. And obviously that comes with signing centre forward. It's one of the big pros about Gyökeres. Obviously we spoke about this on the catch-up TCP live. I think the one thing I would have changed from the Gyökeres discussion we had on the main pod, wouldn't change the analysis, but I think we should have highlighted. The problem is you think you're talking to your audience and people know our thoughts on Gyökeres, so we were sort of going back over what those were, but we should have highlighted the positives, and at some point we, you know, if it gets done, we absolutely will. There's many positives to Gyökeres. There's many things, and one of the big things is something as you were alluding to, is this potential impact on Martinelli, is this potential impact on the left hand side because of that drifting out there, how we can interchange and interlink. There's a lot there, so yeah. No. Sham, could we have got Morgan Gibbs-White instead of Norgaard?
Yeah, the different players.
Again,
if you're Morgan Gibbs-White, well, the comparison there to draw is like an Eze, you know, in terms of squad fit. So whereas Norgaard, we needed a 6'8", hands down. It didn't like you could have gone down the younger route, or you could have gone down the experienced route, which we've done. But that was the profile that we needed, especially losing both Jorginho and Partey. So yeah.
Look, this is a good point, Cypher. I take that, but like what I'm saying is, right now in the team, where's the biggest potential? I do still think it's almost forget the position. The left hand side, I think, is like the bigger upgrade for me than.
I've always felt with Kai Havertz at centre forward, he's very underrated. Very underrated.
I think so.
You know, so it's the problem with Kai Havertz is like he's had like really big like blunders, like massive blunders that are eye-catching. You think of Newcastle in the cup at home. You think of Manchester United in the cup as well. These are really eye-catching errors that you're making. And the problem is that when you have this within your game in these moments, people don't look at the other stuff. They'll look at that and they'll look at what happened in those games and they'll say, it's down on Kai Havertz, which I don't necessarily disagree with because they were shocking misses, but it then prevents you from actually looking at the player as a whole and what he actually did and the amount of workload that we gave him because of the injuries to other positions. So I think Kai Havertz is slept on.
Yeah. And mate, that picture of him in pre-season, oh my God.
Do you worry that it's going to make him a bit more stiff?
Possibly, but the problem is these guys, like they go through all the plyometrics, they go through all the biome, they're so aware of that, and they will be, if he's packing on muscle, it will be in it will be in sort of like what's the word? Not collusion, you know what I mean? Like basically in conversation with the physios and the therapists. I mean, maybe, but also like I have never felt Havertz physically was like too tight. He's always if he's anything, he's a bit languid. He's a little bit too languid. So maybe even just like things like locking his body and locking his feet when he shoots and stuff like that. I don't think he's at risk. If again, not to there's big pros to this, but if Gyökeres was adding muscle, I'd be going, hang on a minute. So yeah, I think it's probably all right. Thank you for super chat, Baru. Thank you for super chat, Josh Miller. Appreciate it. Big Cheese. Arsenal family tweeted we submitted an Eze bid for 45 plus add-ons rejected straight away. I don't know who Arsenal family is, but I think I do think we're in for Eze. And can I tell you why I also think we're in for Eze? Because Spurs have made 2 signings in that position, and they're neither of them are Eze.
And look at the profile as well. Look at the profile of player that they've gone for as well. So.
Because for me, Eze is the superior, actually quite clearly superior player of those 3. I think and Thomas Frank's far too intelligent to not know that. So I suspect Eze's gone for it.
I tell you what, Spurs' business is moving me. Can't lie, in terms of their fit and what Frank's going to be looking to do. I think they're going about it in a very, very interesting way. Like the power that they've added into their team immediately with these 2 players, it's crazy. So I think they'll have a strong season, especially with Thomas Frank. So
I've said this before. He would be right up there on my list, with the Inzaghi's and whoever, like to look at if Mikel ever left. I think.
Just quickly on that, and we can kind of maybe touch in on Norgaard. That's obviously announced today, right? So and I think you tweeted out in terms of both Mikel and Berta talking about the tactical awareness, right? That is a indirect kind of praise to Thomas Frank, because of the way that Thomas Frank sets his team out. And we mentioned it before on the podcast in terms of the transferable qualities in how Brentford play in certain aspects, in the high press, defending deeper in a lower block, and the reliability that Norgaard has given in those 2 facets. I think that's where Mikel looks at Norgaard and thinks, he's going to give us a lot, because there are things that he's been doing at Brentford that will translate immediately to this team, on top of with the Premier League experience that he does have. So I think that's kind of like a bit of praise that he's giving Thomas Frank there.
Yeah, I think so.
That's translating to Norgaard, because Norgaard's ultimately been playing under Thomas Frank since the Championship days. So
to me, that I know you've spoken about this before. The comment on, if you haven't seen it on Arsenal.com, there's a comment about him. I think both Berta and Arteta say Norgaard is like tactically versatile at both, and it's interesting. It's also been interesting, genuinely. So they said experience in that video for Norgaard. They said like tempo control for Zubamendi. It was like almost like trying to give fans a bit of a like, this is why we're signing them a little bit. Do you know what I mean?
I feel like Mikel gives small nuggets there with all the players that he signs, in terms of how like you can kind of like take certain things in certain words. I mean, maybe he might not mean certain things like at the way that we see it, but he gives a little bit of insight. I mean, Norgaard spoke about, his role and how it changed to a double pivot this season as well. And I think George mentioned how, maybe that could be linking to something this season as well. So it's interesting. And that's the thing with me, where it's like, get the deals done so that we can see all this in pre-season immediately. Who cares about the results, but we can start to see what we're actually looking to achieve. Because when you look at Arsenal in pre-season, they always give a little bit of insight in terms of how they're going to play in the following season, in the actual season. Now, it was a lot more difficult last year because of the injuries that we endured. And like, you can go through Mikel's tenure, and you mentioned it many times in terms of the evolution. We didn't see anything profound last year. And I think there were things that prevented us from doing that. So,
and I think we'll see big changes. I even just think even in the targets, George made the point, as I said, the point earlier about the carries over long distance. All of those players, they're of a similar ilk and have similar qualities.
Yeah.
Just to come to this very quickly, yeah, Michael, we've got a mod working on it. So let's come to back to George Coles. Feeling weird about how we go about transfers. Yeah, I think right now we're in the. It's really difficult. We can't tell, mate. We just can't tell how we end the window. It's really hard because I really feel there is like almost like two forks here. Two forks, one fork in the road. We could end this window with, oh my God, Berta, absolute masterclass. He secured the insurance with Madueke, went out and got Rodrigo, whatever. He lowball. He got to the point where Gyökeres was begging to leave Sporting, and they had to let him go for 40 million. Or we could end the window like that, which is actually mad. Or we could end it with Noni Madueke and Gyökeres for 80 million pounds, and you're going, oh, okay. So yeah, right now I don't know. I really don't know.
Let's give you. Let me give you this one, right? So let's say we sign Madueke. I think that one's going to happen. I felt it from the moment the link came out, and some of the big journalists talking about it. I thought this is not Berta just doing his thing here, like playing with us. This seems legit. So we sign Madueke, we sign Eze and Gyökeres. Would you be happy with that?
Madueke, Eze, and Gyökeres.
Yeah.
I think I would. I think like there would be a bit of a feeling there would be a feeling of like we haven't. That's not a 10 out of 10 window.
No,
in my opinion, it's a really
good
window.
Yeah,
it adds a lot, but I still don't feel we've got the superstar attacker we need, and we've needed that for so long.
I think Rodrigo dictates a lot of this.
Yeah,
I think
Rodrigo makes this a 10 out of 10. If it happens.
Because that's certified like world-class quality, who is ready to really take the. It's again the different players, to Alexis Sanchez, but there's a similar sort of journey here in terms of a guy who was performing fantastically, which Sanchez was doing at Barca, to what Rodrigo's been doing at Real Madrid, but not given like the sole responsibility and not the linchpin of the team. To then coming into our team where he would be the linchpin, alongside a Saka, etc. So I think that's just that deal. I think dictates my mood a lot. Not gonna lie. Whereas I look at Gyökeres, I like him. Again, not mentioned before, not my preferred type, but then I can see the idea with Martinelli. I can see the idea with Rodrigo. But then if you don't bring a Rodrigo in, then I start to think, oh well, it's not what I would have. Like I felt we would have done better, and especially with what has been spoken about in terms of like every single year we have found ourselves do very well tactically in a specific game, as we saw against PSG, but when it mattered in box situations, we weren't able to do the business, and therefore you don't deserve to win. I completely buy that argument when people say, you didn't. PSG scored more goals than you, therefore they deserve to win. And I buy that in a knockout competition, and I can have sympathy for Mikel in that aspect, but I can't have the sympathy if it happens in the following season, because then it becomes Groundhog Day, doesn't it? It's not luck. It's Arsenal not recruiting within the forward areas that will address these issues. That's not luck. That's just inadequacy. So,
Yeah, I hear that. Aditya says, genuinely scared of Waneri leaving with all this. Yeah, possibly. We said this recently, didn't we? Like, because you were sort of fairly against this loan idea, but the more I think about it, I was talking with my friend today actually. If we sign, to put a situation to you, if we sign Eze, Madueke, and Rodrigo, would you be okay with a new contract and Waneri going out?
I'll be honest with you. I wouldn't want Madueke for a start, so therefore I'd want to have that situation there with Rodrigo, Eze, and then Waneri there as well. But if you're telling me Madueke, Rodrigo, and Eze come and Waneri signs a new deal, then I'd want him on loan, because I just don't think he's going to be able to get the minutes that I want him to get. That's the, if you're giving me that situation, I'm thinking to myself, okay, how much is Monieri really going to play? We can talk about the number of games that Arsenal are going to have, but that's a lot of options. That's not even considering the centre forward, you know. So I definitely want a loan there if you're giving me that situation at a team where he's going to have responsibility, like bigger responsibility.
It's the best. It's the best for his development, though. Like, and this is another thing. Like, we have to consider he's a young person who needs developing. You know what I mean? Like, I think it comes to a point where you just yes, we'd like to stockpile that, but we have to think about that as well. So yeah, I'm keen to do that. Here's $2. Nope. El Perdedor. Could we see Noni as a MLS left side v low blocks? Yeah. I think this is we've talked about this a little bit in terms of like the development of that left hand side. I think Eze and Noni, I think does really, really help us. Noni's consistency, he's got flaws, but Noni's consistency on both sides is unbelievable. Yeah. It's really good. It's really, really good. Like he's got it. So yeah, I think absolutely. I think, and this is again, we come back to like the Gyökeres conversation. It becomes, we're obviously isolating a lot of it in isolation, but Gyökeres becomes way less of a concern for me at the right price, in the right context, with the right other signings. If I'm getting him for 55 million and he's also in with Rodrigo and Eze, all right, cool. You'll score goals for us. Like, no problem. If you're 70 million, which is what Sammy Montball's saying, and I'm not getting Rodrigo and I'm just getting Madueke, there's a lot more pressure on you, and I have bigger questions. But
yeah,
I think it just depends. It massively depends on the context.
And it's like it goes back to a lot of these moves depend on something else, whereas Rodrigo doesn't depend on something. It's just outright like, yes, ready-made talent. Not saying Gyökeres isn't, but again, I think Gyökeres is more about, you know, the impact that it has on others, you know. And if you don't get like a Rodrigo, as I mentioned already, then you're looking at the Gyökeres deal in isolation and thinking it's a bit underwhelming, you know. So yeah, that's the way I see it. I mean, the Madueke thing as well, right? For you, would you say that you're feeling uneasy because of the fee as opposed to the actual squad role, or is it a bit of everything like me?
It's loads of things. I think it's like the stage we are in the window, like is a big aspect of it. Like we're still waiting for, you know, if we'd advanced with other signings or whatever, it's the stage we are as a club. It's the kind of that we're still, you know, we've still only got 2 signings over the line. As much as we can talk about we've only got 2 signings over the line, which is a backup keeper and a backup. And Superman, you might forgive me, but obviously that's been coming for a long time, and that hasn't been done by Berta massively. Obviously he's closed it, but like we're still King T what we're getting out of this new executive team, and so. That's one aspect. The fee is another aspect. The fact that I think his best position is on the right, and we've got Saka. Like, do you know what I mean? I think there's
so many things, isn't there? Yeah.
So yeah, and so I get it. Like I would never say to anyone you shouldn't be worried about Madueke. I do get it. I draw the line at abusing a player ball they've even on the shirt, but that's football, isn't it? Football Pat says Gyökeres, Eze, and Madueke, or Sesko and Rodrigo. Ooh.
I'd be going Sesko, Rodrigo. Yeah.
Eze is the only one that I go like, I would miss that
100%. But for me, you've got my preferred centre forward option, and you've got my preferred left wing option. So it's as simple as that, really. You know,
Brandestani, who lifts more psychologically, Eze or Rodrigo?
That's interesting.
That's a good question.
Because I think right now, like again, strictly from a fan perspective, I reckon more people are more leaning towards the Eze hype right now.
Maybe. I think the fact that he was at Hale End and stuff, I think is a big aspect in this.
Yeah. I mean,
I don't know. What do you? I think the chat is beginning to calm down, so maybe we can ask the chat. Who lifts us more psychologically, Eze or Rodrigo? I don't know. Genuinely good question. Prometheus says Rodrigo, definitely. Yeah. I meant the players, not the fans. Okay, interesting.
Okay, sorry.
I think for the players, I think it's Rodrigo.
Yeah, it is.
I think realistic, and I said this about this is a pro for Gyökeres, by the way.
Yeah,
This is a big pro for Gyökeres. I think Šeško comes in and people are still going, okay, we needed a proven number 9, and he's not even whatever you think of him. He's not that. He's not a bagsman, right? I think Gyökeres comes in and people go, okay, he's scored goals. Do I? I think people would have questions and see it straight away. But there you go. I think for the players, who did I say this about? Like feeling that was it. The Norgaard signing.
Mm-hmm.
One of the pros in that for me was, say you sign a Buwadi, right, or a Gume. You as Declan Rice and Saliba or whatever, and you're waiting to, Saliba and Saka, for example, you're waiting to sign a new contract, and I almost guarantee you, Saka and Saliba are waiting to sign a new contract based on what we do this summer. That I would put my house on it. Basically, how are you going to show me that we're going to win stuff next season? I need a big investment, right? Yeah. With Norgaard for the backup 6A, it's not to say they would, those players would have been unhappy with Buwadi or whatever. I'm sure they would have got on with them, but they must also be going, I've played him. He's bloody good. And that takes away a bit of a headache against Brentford, frankly.
Yeah.
And it does matter. And that was the one on the Norgaard one. But I think on Rodrigo, because of the name, because of the prestige of Real Madrid, I think
the accolades, mate, and like the big moments. Like Rodrigo is like certified big game player. He produces, he delivers time and time again. And yeah, coming from Real Madrid is the pinnacle of football for most players. And that's why, Saliba eventually, I see him going there, because it's where, like, you're a top player, you want to go to Real Madrid eventually. And to have someone like that come in his prime years as well, like at his peak, I think that's massive for the players in terms of ambition, in terms of trajectory, and what we're looking to achieve. And I do, but like Eze obviously won the FA Cup, but Eze's coming from a team that, let's be honest, is mid-table. It's a mid-table Premier League side that doesn't play, with the pizzazz, barring the individuals, before with Elise and now with Eze and Mateta. So, yeah, I think psychologically, and for me as well, like as much as I love Eze, Rodrigo has to be the one, So, yeah.
Rin,
it's calmed down. It's calmed down. My God,
there's a few more. Any worries about our run of games at the beginning of the season? If the window doesn't go according to plan, I foresee a meltdown if we stumble. Yeah, possible. What is our that I think you and George spoke about it, because I wasn't on the pod. I think when those fixtures came out. What's your take on the start of the season?
Okay, so for me, I'm a little bit of a wimp, right? So my first game of the season, I don't know about you. First game of the season last year, Wolves at home, perfect. Forest at home before that, perfect. Because I feel the first game, I want a nice settle into the league, get 3 points on the board. Do you know what I mean?
You want a Norwich at home 3-0.
Yeah, you want a Norwich at home.
Yeah.
George was very much like, oh, get these early big games in, let's just have it. I was like,
but also, sorry, this is and George, I think you're watching. He's claims he's never nervous for games. Rubbish. Absolute rubbish.
The first game, I'm usually always at the first game, like terrified, because it's like, I don't know about you, it's thinking about all the things like, we need to get that first goal of the season. We need to get that first clean sheet of the season. We need to get that first win of the season. It's all these things I'm thinking about. And I'd just rather that be like a nice game, sunny at the Emirates, 3:00.
Yeah.
Just get it done. And then the next game after that, by all means, it be like Etihad away from home or Anfield away from home personally. Because I do buy the argument where if you want to play like the big teams, it is better to do it early, because just like you, yes, they could have a really good preseason as we did in 22-23, and you're like immediately ready. But I would say it is the best time to play these sides. But generally, I feel like for me, when I look at the fixtures, I mentioned this to George, at baseline, you can't predict what moment the season is going to be defined at.
No.
But I'd say beginning, first 5 or 6, the middle, the Christmas period, the festive period, and then the end. Our running is like fantastic. It's a fantastic end to the season. Our Christmas period, we stay pretty much local outside of, I think it's Aston Villa and Goodison, I think. And our start to the season is hard. But, getting a Newcastle done, getting a Man City away from home done, Liverpool, Anfield done, it's...
Yeah, there's value in that. And I think
Yeah.
I do quite like our preseason. I think I do like the Newcastle game, by the way, because I think
Yeah.
they're always annoying to us. So I want to play them as much as possible and work out what our issue is against them. Although obviously we beat them last time. I like preseason games. To be honest, mate, I think the problem with fixtures, isn't it? We always try and narrativize it. We're like, oh, and you'll notice this 3 games into a season. Like, we're going to be part of it because it's the sphere. Everyone starts to go, oh, is this the season where you're sort of making narratives on the fly? Realistically, you won't know. You won't know. And it will always surprise you and what's going to happen. And there'll be a surprise here and there. And you try and piece together a narrative and predict. But as you say, you don't know. Yeah. Yes. Rohan, I believe you have to bounce.
Yeah, but it's been an eventful.
Good Lord.
I have to say, right, and each their own, but I find it very weird.
I just want to talk football.
Yeah,
I just want to talk football. I'm just here to talk football, and I don't care about anything else. I find it all so weird and draining.
It's very jobless. It is extremely jobless behavior, and I'm telling you, not a single person who has a day job does that. Maybe unless you're extremely deranged, but
maybe. Yeah. But look, thank you guys for
apologies for that.
Sorry, because we literally up to this point. Do you know how mad this is? We've not had to have mods in the chat. That's because the chat's been so good.
Yeah.
Like, people are so great. Like, people are so respectful. Like, we built such a lovely community here. Look, I'm not going to name the person, but I find the whole thing really bizarre, and I just want to talk football, and I don't care about anything else. Like, it's just really weird. It's just really odd.
Yeah.
Anyway,
all right.
Thank you for being here on the Cannon Podcast. Thank you to Forder. I tried to ban a few, but there you go. Thank you to Forder. Thank you all for being here. We'll be back next Thursday at the normal time, 7:30.
Yes.
Apologies. My internet's been up and down.
It's been all right. It's been solid.
I won't be here because I'm going to be on holiday.
I'll sort something.
So Rohan's going to host.
I've done it before.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
It would probably be you and George. It would probably be you and George.
Yeah, George wants it.
Yeah, good stuff. So thank you all for being here, and thank you on nights like these. Thank you so much for supporting us. We appreciate it. Look after yourselves. We will. Yeah, Madueke Scouted coming tomorrow for patrons and YouTube members. I know we always say this, but it's a really interesting one. I think it's good to check out. Yeah, really frustrated me, but I can sort of see it as well. Yeah. We'll get another scout out for you next week. I'm away, but we will have a main pod with me on the just me, Rohan, and George on the Sunday.
Just you on your own, yeah.
Me, yeah, just me. Main pod on the Sunday, which comes out on the Monday. But yeah, we'll have all that sort of content out for you guys next week. All right, thanks for being here. Thank you, Rohan.
Nice one, mate.
Thanks as always for keeping it Arsenal.
Tens of thousands of football fans came to Highbury. This was one kind of queue the ladies thoroughly enjoyed.
Electrifying. Inspiration for Arsenal.